And he said, what is the all? It's the eye, visible objects, and seeing. The ear, sounds and hearing. The nose, smells and smelling. The tongue, flavors and tasting. The body, pressures, tangibles and feeling. And then the mind, mental objects and cognition. He said, that's the all. Now, if you can show me any other all, I'd like to see. And then the monks scratched their heads and said, no, there's nothing else. So the meaning of that, what is the meaning of that? Is it basically it's our whole life, since the time we came out of the womb, even in the womb to some extent, but until the time we die, our life is comprised of simply moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking, and reacting to those things. And basically that's all, the whole life is made up of that. And so that's one of the insights. And there's no one that's really controlling any of that. That it arises and continues through the force and the power of the past karma. And what we're doing now in the present to strengthen and continue those types of, our actions and reactions and in creating more karma. So that's basically what we're trying to, as part of the insight, and to tune into those moments of just hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching. In other words, to use those similes of an animated film. You all know what an animated film is? How they make animated films? Somebody's got a hand draw. Now they might be made by a computer, but in the old days, right? They had a hand draw each frame, like, to create a Donald Duck cartoon. Each slight little movement of the character had to be drawn with a separate picture. So they might have had hundreds of thousands of pages of paper, and then flipping it through very, very fast, it looked like it was actually moving, right? Now, similar to what I mentioned with the roll of film, the film rolls. But because we don't see the individual pages or the frames, because it's run quickly through the projector, they're kind of all run together, and it looks like a smooth flowing characters, and they're doing things. But actually, when we take it apart, try to find Donald in there or Mickey Mouse in there somewhere, we won't find one. So similarly, that is sort of the insight that we can come to when we're really focused in that flow of impermanence, and seeing how it's just a domino effect. You hear a sound that causes the body to maybe go like that, and then the five aggregates, you perceive the sound, and you bring in the past or future about it, like and dislike, then you take action. But all that happens in just a microsecond. Again, faster than a computer is processing information. So that's why we don't see that process broken up, and the illusion of I am doing all these things and I am deciding, it's me is deciding to do this or that. That kind of illusion, gets created in the mind. And then we just get, caught in that illusion, and we we keep on, reacting to things and creating karma, and then having to experience the consequences of that. Now, all karma is not bad karma, there's good karma too, but so the same implies when you start to do good things, like let's say the habit of daily meditation and the habit of some daily yoga practice and other, wholesome type of things, and then those habits also get developed and supplant the other ones. Anyway, so in our this last meditation this morning, or this meditation this morning, try to, again, it all depends on the ability to be able to kind of hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. And then that's how you clearly see that process, because you can see the connections more clearly. And so the domino effect of what is happening when your awareness is kind of, holding that outline of the body where you can feel the physical sensations, and then you can notice any reactions of those and immediate thoughts that may come up based on that. And again, we just watch it, observe it as, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself. Because it's just habits. All these things are going on, because you've basically been programming them. And, there's no one that's really deciding. Actually, there's an idea about ultimate free will. People talk about free will. There's no such thing as free will, because everything is conditioned. Now, you might think you had the free will to decide to come to this retreat or not. Maybe you had a lot of issues, your family wanted you to stay home, or the job wanted you to go, you work during the holidays, but you made the decision not. But it's not just that pure and simple. There's lots of conditions that cause that. And one would be your previous interest in meditation and your desire to want to practice. And so you made that determination, but it didn't come out of nowhere. So that's sort of the meaning of this idea that, and so that's part of the understanding about no self, that ultimately there's no concrete or absolute owner or controller to our body and mind. Now, the term self and no self, that is, sometimes it's translated as soul, no soul. But soul is an English word, and people get confused about what this thing called soul is. But really, it's the sense of I that I already mentioned is behind all of our thoughts, I, me, and mine. Because we think that I, me, or mine, like some religions say, when you die, that I, me, or mine goes to heaven and for eternity, or it may go to hell for eternity. So this idea that this I is somehow eternal, or there's an owner or controller to it. But in the Buddhist sense, the Buddha saw that this I that thinks it's eternal is just basically an illusion, and it may last for a long period of time, even many lifetimes, hundreds and thousands of lifetimes, but it's always changing. But at some point, it can be dissolved, as we've already talked about. So anyway, these are all things that you study in the meditation. Actually, meditation is studying the Dhamma. People think, I want to study Dhamma. So they go get the books, the suttas, and they read and they take notes and they're studying the Dhamma. Okay, that's external Dhamma. And it's very, very useful and sometimes very necessary, or at least very useful. But this is the internal Dhamma. So we're studying the Dhamma by just observing with that space of detachment, how your body and mind is operating. And, having a scientist sort of just objective viewpoint rather than coloring it with their own kind of prejudices or ideas and so on. So the idea of being a scientist is observing how these things come. You talk you through it. You gotta paint. So what is this paint? Why is it? Okay, well, it's the earth element, a couple of earth elements rubbing on each other, producing friction. Or there's a water element, a tear running down and creating some kind of a sharp sensation or anything else. But you don't say that's me. You just say, oh, it's just earth element doing this, water element doing this. Or a sound vibration coming and causes hearing to happen. Then the computer brain just matches it up and says that sound is so-and-so talking or somebody walking. And that triggers off thoughts of why don't they stop that, or any number of things, right? That triggers off the whole mind. And it's just doing it by itself. So this is the way you observe and you objectively observe what is happening. Saying, no, I'm not, justifying oneself and all kind of other things that the mind is, likes to do. Seeing it with that scientific observation. And that leads to, that kind of detaching from it. And knowing that all these things are impermanent. And that is what eventually leads to this conformity knowledge that I mentioned about the mind transforming, or the sense of self, or the feeling of the hard body kind of dissolving. Because if you can understand the body as just being energy, in other words, this physical body is made of billions of cells. And cells themselves are just a lot of molecules, and molecules are made up of atoms, and atoms are just have different amount of electrons running around. So basically it's just energy, compressed energy, physics. And if you can really be convinced of that and get down to that subtle level, the feeling of a hard body can disappear in the mind. It actually does. Because it's only a thought in our mind. The idea of a hard body in a certain shape is just another perception in the mind. So you break that connection between sensation and perception, and that's how the consciousness actually transforms, or transmorphs itself, changes its frequencies and so on. And so it's a very scientific type of process involved. So that's the attitude of somebody who's practicing Vipassana. That's that kind of taking this as a challenge and experiment that you can directly observe. You have a question?
Yes, please. Can you repeat, Bhante, one more time how to break this connection, perception and sensation?
By seeing it by tuning in to see how quickly it goes, and creating that space, being aware of urging. So be aware of the urge. You feel a painful sensation. Immediately just be aware, urging. Spot the urge. It might be muscles tightening up, something else, and relax them. You have to relax around the urge. Because it's very interesting, this is very important to understand, that we feel something, and then we immediately say, that thing is affecting me, like a pain in my knee. So by just calling it bodily vibration, or earth element, whatever little word you want to use, just vibration, material vibration, And just watch the vibration. Don't let the mind create, that's a pain in my knee, because then that's when you get excited. It was just a vibration without the idea that this thing is happening to you. The mind doesn't react because it's that connection, it's that vital connection between the sensation that's coming through the senses and then the self that's reacting to that. And that's where we break it, but it can only be done through mindfulness, having that attention at that level of intention, so the intention to move. That's why I mentioned this many times in our practice. Be aware of that intention before you lift the foot. There has to be an intention there. Or the intention to lift your arm. Watching each one of those as a separate intention. No, it's not enough. Lift some more. Okay. No, not enough. Lift some more. Okay. And the mind is continually pushing the body and also pushing your thoughts. But of course, we never see that. Only under the eye of awareness, concentrated awareness, can you see it. And then when you're seeing it that way, it does it for you. Or it makes it much easier then to. And while you're watching that, it may disappear. Because I usually give the example, let's say you have an itch. An itch, comes up and you're watching that and, you might be seeing itching, but you can still see that aversion in the mind and, especially if it gets more intense. But instead, just watch it for a few more minutes. Usually we want to quickly scratch it, right? Anybody ever quickly scratch something? That's because you think it's permanent. But when you pause and just give it a few seconds, you just watch it, you see how it's changing, and it might diminish in its intensity. And then that urge will get less. And if you keep on observing it, it may come back a little bit, kind of come back and forth like that. But then at some point, it's going to vanish. And so you give it space to be impermanent. We don't give things space to be impermanent because we think they're going to be impermanent, or we think that they're going to be permanent. So by observing the impermanence, because they'll vanish in a minute. They may vanish in 2 or 3 seconds, they may vanish in a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But you have to have patience. That's where patience have to. And where you apply your theoretical understanding. Oh, it's just vibration. Okay, there's no me, no I, no self, no I. Okay, relax. Keep on talking yourself through it. And eventually the mind and the body will conform to that. Or at least to give you the strength to just endure it longer, and then it changes and you forget about it. And you pay attention to something else. So that's how we have to try to observe and to sort of do battle, you might say. So, a meditator, that's why I say buckle up. Right? And it's like a warrior doing, battle, but we're doing battle with our defilements. Maybe those are not such good words to use because it sounds violent, but we're using wisdom to help to change the way the mind has been conditioned. Okay?
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Okay.
Relating to dealing with these hurdles which arise during our meditation. You said to watch it and keep on, stay with it, and it will eventually go away. What if that feeling of pain or that scratching or itching, which is interfering with my meditation, even after applying this, does not go away, become more and more intense, and you just scratch very mindfully for it to go away, and then it becomes a little bit easier to come back to your meditation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and then 5 minutes later, a stronger itch will come back, or another pain. And every time you move your hand to scratch or itch, that disturbs whatever tranquility that you have been accumulating. And it also reinforces the sense of I don't like it. So it reinforces the ego, the sense of I, because it's the I that reacts to everything. So that's why, once in a while, yeah, you might do something, but know that it's going to come back again in another form, in another place. And you'll be spending the whole your meditation period, rubbing this and rubbing that, and you won't gain a deeper concentration. And especially the sense of I gets reinforced every time you do that.
Even if you do it mindfully?
Even if you do it mindfully, yes. At least doing it mindfully is better than scratching it unmindfully.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, naturally, you're going to do that. But as time goes on, as you develop your practice and get used to enduring things more, then it becomes easier.
Okay,
but
thanks.
You have to do that not just in meditation. You have to do that, wherever you are. We do that, touching this hundreds of times a day. Most people, right? You're not even aware of it hardly. And all those little times add up. Doing it only once or twice is probably not going to do much, but we're doing it hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, some people. Even just moving the body like that, or a lot of twitches that people do, So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Bhante.
What about when there's a sense of urge, when there's dissolving?
A sense of urge when there's dissolving. An urge for what?
Like there's, the urge is dissolving, like
The urge is dissolving.
the feel of dissolving, there's an urge for that.
Well, that's a wanting.
Okay.
So it's not going to dissolve by wanting it. It's going to dissolve by relaxing and
That's it. That's the
your
urge.
wisdom.
It's like a relaxing urge.
Yeah, no, there has to be the urge to want to meditate and the urge to sit longer. But those are considered good ones because they're ultimately going to result in the end of the problem, for you to make more progress. So the urge, the desire to practice Dhamma and to do these various practices, those are considered good desires. Because you can let go of things that are good for you, but it's very difficult to let go of things that are bad for you. You ever notice that? You cultivate a bad habit when you're young, right? Like smoking or using bad language or some other things, very difficult to stop them. But, people have learned yoga and meditation, they do it for a month and then they get sick and then they say, oh, I'm going to start again, but then they never do. Or wait another year until some other crisis arises and then I've got to meditate and do some yoga. They do it for a while and they get some benefit. Oh, that's enough for me. And they stop it. It's very interesting. Yeah.
On the other question, I forget the exact sutra, but there's a story of some monk in Buddha's time who practiced very austerely. And then he got really angry at the Buddha and tried to roll a rock over him or something. And it's the question of what if in your practice you really resist the urge to move, or you practice very austerely, but it causes a lot of internal tension until that eventually takes over.
Because you're doing it with the ego. You have to do it with wisdom, not the ego. So it's the wisdom that weakens these things, the understanding, not just it's me that do it, I'm going to do this. It's the practice that's doing it. And that story that you mentioned, that's actually that's Devadatta's cousin. And yes, he had attained psychic powers, but he was doing it with the ego, and he wanted to get more glory than the Buddha, and he wanted to become known for being a great ascetic, and he wanted to start his own order of monks, and he tried to kill the Buddha. But that was because of his ego, and he was doing it for the wrong purposes, wanting to get a massive bunch of disciples and to eventually kill the Buddha and become the great teacher. But that eventually led to his downfall. So he was doing it with the wrong motivation. That's why the motivation is very important. We're not doing this for name, fame, money, or anything else. We're doing it for the purpose of, overcoming suffering. And so there has to be the sense of I there in the beginning, otherwise you're not going to do anything. But it has to be balanced with wisdom. That's the main thing. It always comes back to right understanding. And that's why right understanding is the very first step of the Eightfold Path. And that right understanding is understanding that these five aggregates are not me, mine, or myself. And about the cause of stuff. Anyway, we might touch more on that later on. Okay, I think that's enough now because we want to, carry on with our meditation. Okay? So, go ahead and buckle up. And actually, there's something called a adhitan, or a determination period. That is, people who've gone to Goenka's 10-day retreats, they have that. It means you make a determination, I'm not going to move for this whole hour. And you determine it in the mind. So that when that urge to move comes up, you'll remember that. Stay with it. And, try to keep relaxing and enduring the pain or whatever it itches or other types of annoyances. And knowing that just tune into how they're constantly changing and so on. Make it interesting. That's why you become a scientist. When there's pains arise, bury your mind into it. Really break it up. See, what are these things? Rupa kalapas. These are just atoms and molecules rubbing into each other. And kind of, with the like a child, if they see an ant colony for the first time, maybe when they're a young child, and they're just, wow, look, just fascinated with how these ants walking around, right? So we have to observe our body and mind with that kind of interest, not saying that is me and that is hurting me, or and so on, or I'm bored. It's just boredom. It's not you're bored. It's just boredom, or it's just anger. It's not you. There's just states that arise. So that is also how we try to observe these, because it helps to create that detachment to them. And if you don't pay attention to them, most of them vanish in a very quickly. You only get bored because you're thinking you're bored, and so it keeps on continuing. Feel something else. If you get lost in your thoughts, feel your toes, feel your fingertips. Something that get your mind from dwelling on, some other useless thing or some other distracting thing. That's why if you can maintain the outline of the body, then it's more difficult to get lost into one thing because the mind is in a more expanded state. And so this little pain in your knee or someplace else is just one thing over here, but there's other things going on around that are not so painful. And you plug into those, so that all of your energy can't go into that one because a lot of it is still connected to other things going on over here. That's the key. And then it will forget that very quickly, or at least it will diminish, and it'll stop being such a strong thing. But of course, it may keep coming back over and over. And at a certain point, yeah, you may have to change, especially if you have some chronic type of pain. Or stand up. So stand up during the meditation and sit back down later on if the pain gets too much. Okay, so let's go ahead and just check your posture. Just to align your spine and the back of the head, keeping the chin level with the floor. Imagine you're balancing a stack of books on top of the head. And begin some 3-part breathing. You start out with a 4/2 rhythm. If you can do that a few times comfortably, try a 6/3. So breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. And combine that breathing with the counting the breaths from 1 to 10. See if you can count up to 10 without the mind getting lost. If you do get lost in thoughts on the way, start again counting at 1. If you make it to 10 without getting lost, let go of the counting, let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, short, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel it. Feel the subtler movements of expanding and contracting. Feeling the pauses between the breaths. Turn up the mental microscope. Try to hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. With the breathing being the dominant, continuous sensation. But all around it, other sensations may be felt. Touch of clothing on the skin. So many other different sensations. Prickling sensation, tingling sensation. Minor aches or pain in the background. If you anchor the attention to the breathing, it can be hard for the mind to get lost in other distractions. You feel the impermanence of the in-breath and the out-breath. Within one in-breath, you can notice 2 or 3 or more little movements, minute little movements of expanding or contracting. At the same time, be alert for thoughts, urges, intention, waiting to take control. If you notice an urge or a wanting, make a note of it. Wanting, urging. Stay with the breathing. The object of the urge or the wanting disappears. It's difficult to feel the breathing, do slightly deeper breathing to a point where it's easy to stay connected to it. Especially the three parts, lower, middle, upper, lung expansion. While observing those breathing sensations, cultivate that understanding. It's just material vibration, the earth element of the clothing and the ribs, skin, and the air element. It's going in and out of the lung. Just understanding that this breathing keeps this body alive. Silently going in and out of the body thousands of times per day. Just listen to that, feel that. So beautiful. If you can, even feel the heart beating behind the breathing. The heart is beating, sending out oxygenated blood to all the cells of the body. Keep turning up the power of the mental microscope. Notice subtler, finer detail, sensation, body-mind process. Especially of perception. If you recognize any part of the body as a body part or words, hands, feet, even breathing, it's a perception. It's a mental image. In reality, there's only vibration. You don't feel a hand, you think a hand, what you feel is vibration. Study that one. See if you can observe that 5 aggregate process. Especially in a certain impingement, material vibration immediately producing an unpleasant sensation, and perceiving that as to be some particular thing, an urge to want to remove it. There's a sense of I there, observing, wanting to move. They all happen in a split second. That process is basically happening all by itself through conditioning. It doesn't need you. Slowly come out of the sitting awareness. Again, try to do it movement by movement. Clearly see the intention before moving your hands or arms or legs, like you were watching a video of your body in the frame by frame sequence. First of all, take a deep breath. Arch the spine backwards, breathe in. Lifting up, pressing the chin to the top of the chest. Lifting the chin up on the in-breath. Lifting, 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 lifting. And slowly stretching the legs out. Be aware of your arms, each movement. Try to label them as, lift your hand off your leg. Be aware of lifting, lifting. You're going to move it to the right or left. Be aware of moving. You're going to lower it or raise it. Be aware of that. Raising, lowering.